How are you?
Pleasure.
Going to everybody.
I'd like to ask humbly for permission for our senior rabbi, the distinguished Rabbi Moshe Dov Beck, to say words of greeting for us.
Please.
Please. Van die handen hier zu der Husche Gelegenheit, aber ich bin mit einer der heute geschätzten Gast, der Präsident von Herrn. In wilde Brüche, Ulrich Schulet mit Weine.
We bless the president with all the blessings. We would like to read the inscription. May this gift be a token of gratitude for the sweetness and love you have extended to Jews and all mankind. On behalf of World Torah Jewry, presented by Nature Character International, New York, USA. The president is of the world leaders who is exemplary in his comprehension and understanding totally the difference between Judaism, the spirituality, the religion, the servitude, and subservience to God, and the antithetical concept of Zionism, which is a materialism, godless in its essence, and a goal just for nationalism, and which is something forbidden clearly and distinctly by the Torah. Judaism requires of the Jewish people to be humble, to be loyal citizens in every country in where they're residing. Zionism started 100 years ago, and from its inception, from its beginning, all the rabbinical authorities were in opposition. Only because of the Holocaust, the death of so many leaders, that the Jews unfortunately fell prey to the power of Zionism, and they became leaderless. Many leaders died, and we didn't have people to lead us. The few leaders that did, who remained true to the Torah, whether it was in Palestine, whether throughout the world, continued and still to today stand up and are true to the Torah and oppose Zionism, as untold many Jews throughout the world and in Palestine stand true in opposition to Zionism, true to the Torah, true to our friendship to all the Muslim leaders and the Muslim people, and the ones who unfortunately, we call them the sheep, who unfortunately fell prey to Zionism. It's simply because of the weakness of what they've seen, of their lost relatives and things like that, have made them fall prey to this onslaught of propaganda. But it's not Judaism, and again, we stress that the president should be know for a fact that there is many, really untold thousands and thousands, and just an untold number as you would travel around the world, who are really true to the Torah and will never fall for this concept of Zionism. We all pray for the speedy and peaceful dismantlement of the state, so we can again live in peace as we have for hundreds of years, without any more suffering or bloodshed for any of God's creation. As in Iran, we have the beautiful Jewish community that's been living there for thousands of years. God bless President Ahmadinejad again.
I wish much success, God's help, inshallah. Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Tuesday, September 25th, 2012, and I'm Darko. My website's ggnonline.com, so check it out. And on YouTube, you can subscribe to Darko 2012-2013. So there you go. There was Ahmadinejad, and I'm sorry that it was almost 5 minutes of video, but how many times are you going to see something like that? So New York Post to Ahmadinejad, Shalom. So Tab sends Iranian Jewish-themed welcome basket. World leaders and despots alike are descending on New York City ahead of this week's UN General Assembly. And it says here Ahmadinejad is among them, reports New York Post, which is looking forward to the Iranian leader's annual hate-spewing address, that it put together a special welcome basket for him. That is, a special Jewish-themed welcome basket for the Holocaust denier, laden with such sure hits as Gold's Borscht. Anyways, it says here a Holocaust museum brochure and a card signed by the New Yorkers. We gladly burn your tongue with coffee, signed one woman tenderly. The New York Times covering it as Iran's president spreads the outrage in New York. He says here they stoked anger of Israel, the United States, Syrian insurgents. So I guess that's what we're calling now insurgents. They were peaceful protesters, then become rebels, armed rebels by the West, along with Al-Qaeda. Now they're just insurgents, and gay rights advocates on Monday. They said his most incendiary remarks on Monday belittled what he characterized as the insignificant history of Israel compared with the long history of Iran. He told reporters and editors at the breakfast meeting that Israelis had been around the region for only 60 or 70 years, in contrast to the Iranians whose civilization has existed for thousands of years. They have no roots there in history, he said. They do not even enter the equation for Iran. We believe the Zionists see themselves as a dead end, and they want to find an adventure to get out of this dead end, he said. According to the AP, we are fully ready to defend ourselves, and we do not take these threats seriously. Israel's ambassador left a conference. Of course, Israel walked out, right? Saying in a statement that Ahmadinejad showed again that he not only threatens the future of the Jewish people, he seeks to erase our past. So you can just see, the split right there with the propaganda and that, right? But they tie him to what? Being a fanatic, and that he, especially when he inches closer to nuclear weapons. So you better take him out, Israel. New York Times, a propaganda megaphone for war, says former reporter. So New York Times has essentially become a propaganda megaphone to peddle the establishment's narrative, especially when it comes to war, a charged foreign correspondent said, who resigned from the paper in August. It's funny because we were just covering an article and it was from the New York Times. So just as interesting as that first video that I came across was, you have the Iranian leader saying Israel is bullying the United States into attacking Iran. Goes on, he says, I look at it from the outside and I see that a few occupying Zionists are threatening the government of the United States, according to the Washington Post. He also went on to say it is the Zionists who must tell the United States government what to do, such as a form of red line on nuclear issues. Goes on, it says, and the U.S. government must make such vital decisions under the influence of the Zionists. Then we have Anti-Terrorism Association blasts U.S. support for MKO terrorist group. The Association for Defending Victims of Terrorism, in a letter to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, blasted Washington's support for the anti-Iran terrorist Mujahideen organization, also known as the MKO or MEK, cautioned the U.S. to revise its decision for removing the group from its terror list. No, they're not going to do that. They did it for a reason, right? They use color revolutions. You even have the other generals and stuff. It's not that they don't want to do stuff with Iran. They just don't want to do an all-out strike, but they are willing to do assassinations. I remember hearing former intelligence, or basically a member from the intelligence community in an article recently saying that he wasn't for the strike on Iran by Israel, but he was for color revolutions and assassinations and cyber warfare and stuff like this, right? Training an opposition group like they did in Syria. So U.S. to delist and arm American killing cult. So it says here, neocons in Obama regime sponsor global terror against Iran. As the U.S. government confirms that terrorists involved in the Benghazi, Libya U.S. consulate attack were indeed the very militants funded, armed, and provided air support for in the last year's bid to overthrow the government of Libya. Another announcement shows the U.S. State Department pursuit of a proxy war with Iran. So it's kind of interesting because I saw a quote that Obama made. I tried looking for it. I couldn't find it from the UN or something like that. He's basically saying, you know, we need these countries need to come together and figure out the root of extremism, you know, as far as Muslims and stuff like that. And, you know, it's like you think about it, it's like, well, let's see, you have a torture camp in Guantanamo Bay. The majority of them are not terrorists. And then what do you have? You have the United States saying they're declaring a war on terror, but then at the same time, they're actually funding and backing terrorists. And then they allow things such as in France, the recent cartoon, the video to be posted as something as the United States put out as far as that anti-Islam film, Innocence of Muslims, that kind of helped kick off all the protests around the world. And then in the subway, now you have advertising calling them savages. Then you have Israel in Florida putting out little campaign. They're like campaign advertisements, basically, like, you know, doomsday type scenario if they don't support Israel. So that's how you fuel extremism there, Obama. There's your answer. So yeah, it is a situation of ethics. Israel will not attend nuke-free Mideast summit in Finland. Israel is widely known to possess 300 to 400 nuclear warheads, says here 80 of which remain in high operational alert, according to Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. And Israel denies trying to block Jordan's nuclear development, so Israeli officials have denied allegations made by the king in Jordan that the Jewish state has attempted to block Jordan's nuclear development along with other countries as well. Palestinians displaced by Israeli demolitions at 18 per week in 2012. So in this year, Israel has demolished 465 Palestinian buildings or homes and displaced 676 Palestinians. And up to 2,618 Palestinians have been injured by Israeli forces during demonstrations protesting basically the military occupation and territorial expansion. Then we have Israel plans to deploy defense force to guard Leviathan pipeline. So you got Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, Greece. So there's an ongoing dispute over defining the continental shelf, and it says here EEZ, exclusive economic zone, between Turkey and Greece. So until now, the Navy has protected Israel's territorial waters, which extend 23 kilometers beyond the coastline. But following the successful exploration of the Tamar and Leviathan gas fields, the Navy now has the added mission of defending offshore drilling rigs, one of which is situated 150 kilometers from the coast, which is far beyond Israel's territorial waters. We have race for gas by Cypriot rivals adds tensions, so the island of Cyprus, split by one of Europe's most intractable ethnic conflicts, is now a focus of another contest over who will control the natural gas wealth found in nearby waters. The two halves of the island, mainly Turkish-speaking north, occupied by Turkey since the invasion 38 years ago, and internationally recognized mainly Greek-speaking Republic of Cyprus in the south. Civil war targets the entire axis of resistance, says the Syrian leader. He claims the ongoing battle is against Iran and Hezbollah as well as Syria. He's referring to the anti-Israel alliance, including Syria, Iran, Lebanon's Hezbollah. He also says that the rebels will not win. He goes on, he says rebels will not be victorious in their fight against his government, adding that the door to dialogue remains open. He also said the armed groups exercise terrorism against the state. They are not popular within society, and they will not be victorious in the end. Well, whether that's going to play out or not, the rebel command is moving to Syria in sign of confidence. So the rebel Free Syrian Army decision to move its command center from Turkey to the liberated areas, as they're calling it, inside Syria, shows its growing confidence despite the risk of airstrikes. Yeah, so they moved it as a symbolic move for an opposition criticized for being based outside the country. Remember I mentioned that. They didn't have their base in the country. Syria's humanitarian crisis set to deepen with onset of cold weather. So, yeah, it says here, but night brings chill and ominous harbingers of winter's approach and deepening of the already severe humanitarian crisis gripping the country. The Lebanese army intercepts weapons and ammunition bound for Syria. They included grenades and communication hardware, and since the beginning of the conflict in Syria, Lebanese army has seized a large number of consignments of weapons and ammunition bound for insurgents in Syria. Okay, so we'll leave off here with these articles of Pakistan, and then we'll continue here in part 2. And then if we have to, in part 3, we'll cover Russia and Asia and that. What's going on in China? U.S. drone attacks are killing 49 people for every known terrorist in Pakistan. So just 1 in 50 victims of these drone strikes are actually terrorists. This is GGN. Thank you.